And welcome to another episode of Ardent Cinema, the #1 podcast for a book club style discussion of all things movies. This is a weekly podcast, and we encourage you to follow along as we take a deep dive into each movie's plot, overall themes, what we thought of the acting and directing, our feelings on the film, and more. At the end of each episode, we will announce the movie for next week, so make sure to listen until the end. I am your angelic host, Sean.
I am your hopeless romantic host, Daniel.
Welcome to the show. Soy Alejandro de España. No hablo español. This week, we hope you watch along with us for Wings of Desire, available on HBO Max and Blu-ray.
I can't see you, but I know you're here. I feel it.
Directed by Wim Wenders and written by Wim Wenders and Peter Henkeck. Starring Bruno Ganz as Damiel, Solveig de Martin as Marion, Otto Sanders as Cecile, and Peter Falk as Peter Falk / Columbo. Yeah. Bruno and Otto are two angels walking the earth since time immemorial. Their mission, observe, comfort, and document. On one day, no different than any other, Damiel observes a beautiful trapeze artist and begins to feel a very male feeling. Can he ignore his new lust for life? Join us as we explore an angel's fall from monochrome in Wings of Desire.
Dun, dun, dun.
Excellent.
Thank you. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I thought it was a very beautiful movie. I love the...
You took my adjective.
Why?
I thought it was a very beautiful movie.
Well, we can both have the same adjective.
Fine.
So yes, I thought it was a very beautiful movie with beautiful themes about life and about cherishing the mundane and the little things, basically. That's what I got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's a beautiful love story on top of that. And on top of that, the cinematography was fantastic. And I really liked the use of monochrome to color and the intent that the director used to get that message across.
Yeah. What about you, Sean?
I love the film. I thought it was a very lovely film, to be honest. To Danny's point, it makes you stop and really contemplate life and our role in it and how we persevere through life, and the need to really persevere and continue moving forward rather than getting bogged down in, day-to-day minutia, right? And, seeing life for what it is and enjoying it and really trying to live in life rather than just trying to survive. So for that reason and many others, I very much enjoyed it. What about you, Alejandro?
Yeah, definitely. Very life-affirming. The first 20 minutes, honestly, had me waxing and waning in and out of consciousness a little bit. Not because I was bored, but I was a little tired, and the writing can be very poetic at times as you're listening to their internal dialogue. That said, I was locked in from the start, and once Marion enters the picture, it went from good to great for me and stayed there right until the end. In every aspect, the best word to describe it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
And yeah, I completely agree with the first 20 minutes. I was exactly the same. As a matter of fact, it took me 3 attempts actually to get through the beginning.
Started.
Yeah, all of which was because I was also pretty tired myself. But yeah, in the beginning, the movie itself is it's not plot heavy at all. You're just kind of going. No. It's just you're watching Damiel and Cecile as they're just kind of observing all these random characters as they go through normal daily life, and they're just kind of monologuing to themselves in like a poetic way, and it almost in a monotone way because it's kind of their inner thoughts, and
right,
not during any kind
and the inner thoughts of their subjects too.
Exactly. So it's not like they're going through any heavy actions. They're literally just talking about what they're doing at the very moment, or things they wish they were doing, or just kind of just their inner daily thoughts. So during those moments, yeah, I was dozing off a little bit at first, but yeah, once it starts picking up more at an emotional level later on.
Yeah.
And then you're really engaged for the rest of it.
I thought part of the point of that was to demonstrate the humanity in everybody, and that's their perspective. That's what they see. From the old man in the library to the punk rock artist in the club, people that you would stereotype and maybe put into a box have their own world in their head, and that's what it's showing. Which comes back to Damiel's fall which is that he falls in love with humanity and wants to experience it and wants to have the tactile feeling and be able to say hello to people. And that comes from his eternal observations of these people and finding beauty in it.
Do you think that's something that was spurred because of the events of the film, or is that something you think that he was contemplating for some time?
I think that Marion was the turning point.
Yeah.
Because when they're having their conversation, at one point, Damiel and Casil are talking to each other. And it seems like this is their daily report where they kind of demonstrate to each other the beautiful things they'd seen that day. Casil identifies with exactly the same things Damiel's talking about, and he empathizes fully. So it seems like they're in the same place. But yeah, Damiel has this new experience that he's never had, and Casil seems just more. It's interesting. I actually want to ask you guys, how does he come across to you when they're waxing poetic about their day? Because he seems very stuck in his ways, very militant about his mission.
Who is, to be clear?
Casil.
Yeah.
They both seem, in the beginning where they're both talking, they both seem to be on the same page at first, and they're just kind of discussing just their overall observations on humanity. Mm-hmm. It kind of forced me to like wonder what exactly is their job supposed to be when they're saying all this random information of, I think Damiel says at one point, there was this one woman who put away her umbrella during the rain and allowed herself to get drenched. So I'm just trying to see what the purpose is other than being curious, Well,
the purpose to me, I put it in my synopsis. I thought the purpose was simply to have somebody there to document humanity throughout the ages, because humans obviously have a short life, a short memory. Writings get lost, computer chips get lost, hard drives get lost, history is lost. So it's just to have an observation for the beauty of life and to document the things that are special. Like, that seemed to me what their mission was. But Damiel, for whatever reason, seemed more militant about it. Like, things cannot change, this is the way it has to be, even though he appreciates the same things.
Yeah, I also got something else on top of that.
Yeah.
I almost feel like beyond just the job of documenting human life, I feel like it was a test by God to the angels. Because
a test they're supposed to fail, maybe?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got that feeling.
Like in order for these angels to gain a new understanding that they didn't have before, something that the humans can teach them. And then you learn later in the film that this was not an isolating incident where Damiel falls in love with humanity and he decides to become human. This has happened all over, because we learned that the actor,
Peter,
right? What was his name? Peter?
The actor's name is Peter, and he's playing himself.
He's playing himself. Okay, yeah. Peter then tells him that he was also an angel and he did the very same thing. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of feels like God put them there for that's the real reason why he put the angels there.
I wonder. I think that might be it too.
I think that's part of it. I think part of it too is we see many times that the angels will touch the humans, and in many cases it's almost as if it's a comforting presence.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you often see people that are like, for example, there's a scene on the train where I believe it's Damiel. He's on the train, and there's a man who is like just overwhelmed with life. Like, I think his wife had left him. They had some kind of argument. It wasn't entirely clear, and something to do with his mother as well. And he's like really depressed. And then Damiel comes and just puts his hand on his shoulder, and he starts to have some kind of life reaffirmation of life, where he's starting to say, no, I can persevere. I can continue moving forward.
Yeah, I just got to put my head up and buckle down.
Yeah, like, this isn't the end, right? I can just continue on, right? And that happens many times through the film, where it seems like a direct result of their comfort, their touching of the people. So I think it's partially to document, but also to give people the opportunity to see life from a different perspective. Despite the issues that they're dealing with, it's not the end. That doesn't have to be the all-encompassing of their life, right? There is something beyond that they can look forward to living.
Which is kind of a sad thought, Because at one point they mentioned that there's too many people, there's not enough of us to see everything. So in this mythology or whatever, angels have always been there. They're not reincarnated people. They're not being refreshed. So if it is their mission for all of them to eventually find their humanity, then that means humanity's left alone, which is kind of a sad thought. Like the biggest one to me, another example was when there's a motorcycle accident. This guy's on the side of the road and he's just in pain and there's nobody there to help him. And Damiel comes up, puts his hands on his head and just starts giving him images, a lake, a house, a boat, just something to distract him. And it's these little gifts they give them that would eventually disappear. And I also found it very beautiful in the moment. It's not these big gestures. They're not coming down to save humanity. It's just comfort.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the tone of this film seems like there would be new angels to replenish the diminishing supply eventually. Because, you know, there is a big sense of comfort in this film. And I don't know, maybe I just have a hard time believing that, you know, if you have this creator that is sending these angels in part to document, but also the comfort that he would have a limited, like a time limit on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I feel like eventually there would be new angels that would crop up that would,
maybe,
you know, comfort.
The two angels we see, they did at one point talk about existing before humanity was even around.
Right.
Which that just makes me think these are creatures that have been here since the creation of Earth.
Right. Going back to, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I just want to add that. But, you know, to me, something makes me feel like
maybe they're like training wheels that humanity won't. The point is that humanity won't need them eventually.
Well, there is that. And at the same time, I just feel like when you see all the other angels out there, they don't necessarily look very happy themselves.
No, and neither do our two main characters. They're
longing for something.
Apathetic.
Yeah. Which makes me it kind of strengthens my theory of the fact that that is just what God intends for them.
Mm-hmm.
To break out of that, they need to learn from humanity.
Right.
Well, Alejandro, you say they're apathetic. They look apathetic. But at the same time, going back to your original question about kind of how Cassio and I guess Damiel to some extent, how they were characterized in that like report early on that they were like the day's report that they were given early on. They were both really adamant about wanting to change things. Like in the case of Cassio, you know, he wants to like get rid of all the evil in the world, right? And remove that so that people don't.
They were sad that they can't do more. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I don't know that I would call that apathetic necessarily. Like it's just they are beholden to their situation. Like they can't really escape.
I meant apathetic of their current like their current lot in life. Yeah. I don't think they're by nature apathetic. No.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess to answer your question, like, yeah, it's a frustrating experience for them, especially I think Cassio, because he feels like he's giving everything he's got, but in many cases it's not helpful, or it doesn't ultimately lead to like actual comfort to the people. Like, for example, there was a person who unfortunately decided want to end their life, and he's on top of a building, and there's like a crowd of people around him saying like, hey, come back, you know, you don't have to do this. And he sees them, and at one point he, you know, goes to comfort him, and we hear the man's inner monologue talking about like, oh, you know, he hopes his girlfriend doesn't see his letter that he left too soon, this and that. And Cassio's trying to comfort him, but it fails. The man jumps, and immediately
I was annoyed at Cassio at that moment because he didn't do anything. He just had his hand on him. I'm like, say something, like for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that speaks to like the limiting nature of their powers, and like what they can do, right? Because, you know, he obviously would have wanted to like pull the man back or give him something stronger to have him, you know, reaffirm life, but at the same time he's just stuck giving what he can. Yeah, and that's frustrating.
To me, it's like the equivalent of, you know, something bad happens, you know, like somewhere in another state or whatever, and now all people do is sending positive vibes.
No.
Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers, baby.
Cassio was legitimately distressed, though. That was the most emotion we see one of the angels, like, pre-transformation have.
Right.
And I think he actually is a little bit depressed for a while after that, because we see almost his perspective changes, and he starts seeing more and more of the negative in the world.
Right.
Finding people more distressed, which is like an accurate representation of depression, and because it changes your perspective. So now he
Right.
sees society as more damaged than it is.
Yeah,
which ultimately causes him to decide to not take the plunge and become human, because he's
No, I'm talking
kind
about
of
Cassio.
Cassio. Yeah, he doesn't. That's what I'm
Oh,
saying,
you
because
think that's part of the reason?
yeah. So that's Cassio's experience versus Damiel's experience, which
Like,
he
why would I want to be a human? These people are depressed and jump off
exactly.
buildings.
Whereas
Yeah, there's
Damiel
evil in the
has
world.
seen the light,
Right,
in a sense, with what he has been experiencing and witnessing. You know, he has found the love, and Cassio has only seen death and pain. So Cassio's not yet ready to become human.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Cassio not taking a plunge. I mean, we do see him take a very literal plunge off of the same statue from the beginning.
He was trying to see what it was like. I
guess
suppose.
something like that.
Well, because it was immediately after
Yeah.
the man had jumped. So I guess in some sense he wanted to feel what that's like or experience the emotions behind it. I actually really like the film and how they portrayed that, because, you know, we see it from his perspective falling.
First person.
And
shot.
then immediately it's just all these like disparate quick cuts, and like the camera is shaking and swiveling, and it's very disorienting to watch for like a good like 30 seconds, give or take. And it's intense. It really is intense, and it belies the emotions that we just felt from, you know, Cassio not being able to save the man. It's so discombobulating that you can't really focus. And for me, at least, it was very difficult to focus for the next minute or so until we came back to Damiel after.
And that scene has even more importance, because right after that, it transitions into this scene where Marion is doing her final performance. The circus tour is ending. This is going to be the final show. And previously, she had talked about possibly wanting to end her life because she saw her future career going out the window. So at this moment, we just saw this man jump off the building, and then it transitioned to this final scene, which makes us more worried about that character.
Yeah.
It has a really good relationship right there. And you would also mention perspective. This movie does a really good job of establishing perspective. One of the first shots in the movie is of Damiel's eye, a super close-up, which tells us this we're seeing it through his vision, right? During this scene, I believe this is the first time we see any color. As she's swinging, every now and then it turns into a color shot. And the perspective changes. Instead of being up there with her, it's on the ground as a human being. So I don't actually think this is Damiel seeing color, because we see a reaction shot and he doesn't react to it, to seeing color for the first time. I think this is the movie telling us that he's starting to make a transition in his mind and to see her as a human being. Perspective comes down to the ground like a human being, and he sees color for the first time, or we see color for the first time.
To represent his feelings.
To represent his feelings and his changing perspective.
Right.
But you don't see him react to it. I don't think he's literally seeing color yet.
I agree. Yeah. He doesn't really start to see color until he actually,
Right.
dies, or his angel form dies.
But I thought the perspective
goes to
change was smart to tell us that, because this is the first time it's down on the ground where everybody else is.
It took a moment to figure that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at first glance, when you're first watching the film and you see that color shift,
Yeah.
it's a bit abrupt, and you're kind of wondering what the intention is.
Yeah, but it gives us
the
the clues.
from the director. Yeah, it gives you clues, but clues that you then have to look back and see. Like, I didn't think of that immediately.
Definitely,
that
definitely.
kinda,
No, me neither.
That kind of happens as you go. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, at first that was actually a complaint that I had written down.
yeah?
I wrote like, I just don't see the director's intent with these moments of color shifting, because it just doesn't. Like,
You weren't sure where it relates
exactly.
to.
I was like, is it like from point of view of a human, and they're turning, like whenever you're seeing what the human sees, it's color, right? That's what I thought it was.
Right.
But then that didn't make any sense for that trapeze scene.
But you were on the right path, for sure.
Yeah, it was somewhere there. I just had to like kind of formulate it after a while. By like the third quarter of the movie, I started realizing what was going on.
Well, jumping off that real quick, it's an interesting contrast to some of the later color scenes before we get the movie in color for the rest of like the last like quarter of the film, where some of them are from Cassio's perspective, and they're always like some kind of like war-torn building. Like, for example, he's following the old man and he's talking about how things used to be and how things used to look. He's still in like some kind of shop in the area, and you just see like a war-torn building that's in color for like...
For a point of view, right?
Yeah.
I think in that case, that's the point of view of the old man.
Oh, you think that old man actually experienced that?
Yeah.
The old man, that's what the old man is looking at as he's walking.
Yeah. And you also see like a broken down a bombed out building where like a woman is like in her living room kind of waving to people as they're walking by. Because, you know, just for the listener, this movie's set in West Berlin about 40 some odd years after World War II. So in many cases, you know, that time period is still pretty fresh in people's mind. You see the Berlin Wall many
it's a
times.
big deal in this movie for sure.
And that's something that, you know, is still heavily impacting people's lives from day to day. So I think from the old man's perspective, he's envisioning some of those past points of view that he had. But where I was going with this more is those are the color flashes or color shifts that Cassiel sees. And they're all a little more on the depressing side, right? It's like a bombed out building or a woman in her living room, you know, her house is demolished and it's gone, things like that. Whereas with Damiel, it's usually like happier things like Marion, you know, on the trapeze set, you know, swinging, right? And then eventually just life in general. And he sees everything, right? So to your point earlier, it's like they're kind of shifting.
They're both shifting in opposite directions.
Yeah, it's like they're shifting reactions to what life has to offer, right?
Okay. I mean, I didn't see it that way.
Sure.
Like, I didn't see that point of view, color shot of the ruins as Cassiel's view. I thought it was the old man's view.
But Cassiel's with the old
He's
man.
with him.
Yeah.
But because of the color, I thought the color was representation, like in the trapeze scene. I thought that was more representing the shift towards humanity, right? Whereas Cassiel's shift is supposedly going opposite, right? Yet there still is color. But I guess you can still see it that way. You can see it as just the color shift is just that's when he's gaining some kind of understanding of humanity, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah, because it goes along with your idea about, you know, maybe there's a test for them.
Right.
Right. They're both getting the same test, but they're seeing things from wildly different perspectives and they're seeing wildly different things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, one, you know, doesn't really see it worthwhile to pursue, at least at that moment. So.
Yeah. Another reason why I thought that was from the view of the old man too. I don't know if this was on purpose or if the shot just wasn't that good. But like you notice when you see the point of view shot, you know, you can kind of see that it's kind of from like a walking perspective, and it looks a little more blurred to me. I thought maybe they were trying to show like the old man's vision or lack of vision because, you know, of his age. So I thought they were just kind of trying to portray that. Maybe I was thinking way too much into it, but you know, I don't know.
It's valid. Maybe it's trying to show him crying or dirt in his eyes. Who knows?
Right. I don't know. But that was the initial impression that I got.
Sure. Yeah.
What were you guys' thoughts on Peter Falk? The actor and character has such a great on-screen presence.
Yeah, he has a certain like confidence and wisdom about him, and he's very, you know, he's cool as a cucumber. Like,
yeah, and anything that comes out of his mouth, any writing they do for him, just sounds better. He's such a great actor. I had a concern in the beginning when the angel Damiel starts giving him a lot of attention. And my first thought was, oh, great. Even the angels give celebrities more attention. Like, why is this guy getting all this time? You know what I mean? And then, of course, the revelation that he's an ex-angel is kind of fixes all that. Obviously, maybe there's some connection. There's some, what would you say?
Yeah, like there's, like maybe it was inexplainable why he was so magnetized to this guy.
Right, why was he drawn to this one guy out of everybody in Berlin? And the guy flies into the city, and Damiel literally teleports himself up into the plane. That's where he first meets him, right?
Right.
Maybe he senses some aspect of himself in him, but he can't quite explain why.
Right, exactly. Some underlying connection there between angels, because obviously Peter can feel them.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that they feel him, vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Peter Falk in this. To your point, Alejandro, when I first saw like, oh, there's a movie production in it, I'm like, oh, another movie talking about a movie production. Oh, how original.
Like glorifying themselves?
Yeah, it's like a little self-aggrandizing, you know, getting to like, oh, like The Artist or the other musical one about Hollywood. I forget the name of it. Anyways.
La La Land?
La La Land. Yeah, there's like a La La Land or The Artist is like, okay, yeah, it's Hollywood. Great. Good job, guys. Point being is that I like that they didn't focus on the production aspect itself. It was just like incidental. It could have been a plumber, whatever. Like, I'm glad that his role in life wasn't central to the story. I like that they chose Peter Falk He just makes everything kind of effortless in terms of how he acts, right? Like when he's trying to figure out the hats, which hat to wear. He's kind of like, oh, this one? Nah, not too
Yeah,
much.
like a minute of trying on hats, and it's super entertaining. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic. I like that they chose, at least at the time, a very recognizable actor because there were moments where I thought to myself, wait, is that Columbo? And then there's a guy that walks by him while he's walking the street and was like, hey, that's Columbo. And somebody goes, nah, his coat's too shabby. Which I was like, okay, good job,
That
guys.
blew my mind. I was not expecting him in this movie.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, no, he does a wonderful job. I mean, he's a very comforting presence in a time when the angels need the comfort. The angels are giving so much comfort to everybody else that they're lacking in actual comfort for themselves.
I can't see you, but I know you're here. I feel it. You've been hanging around since I got here. I wish I could see your face. Just look into your eyes and tell you how good it is to be here. Just to touch something. See, that's cold. I feel good. Here, to smoke. Have coffee. And if you do it together, it's fantastic. To draw. You know, you take a pencil and you make a dark line, and together it's a good line. But when your hands are cold, you rub them together. See, that's good. That feels good. There's so many good things. I wish you could talk to me. 'Cause I'm a friend. Compañero.
So they're able to get that through Peter's,
I think Peter's trying to give beyond comfort. I think he's trying to nudge them in the right direction.
Oh, he's got his own personal mission, right?
for sure.
Into what he feels God's plan is, like to have these angels kind of figure out the need for.
I wouldn't give him that much credit to say he knows God's plan, but I think he has experienced something wonderful that he wants to share. Like he knows how awesome this is compared to being an ethereal ghost.
Right.
Like just rubbing your
he's
hands
just
and smoking a cigarette. This is great, guys.
Yeah, so that's his mission now in life. He just, I guess, keeps an eye out for angels, and you see that because he does it again with Cassio.
He's got a script.
Yeah, does
Absolutely.
the very
Yeah, he
same
says the
thing.
same thing. Yeah. Yeah, actually.
He knows what they need to hear. This side has connection, and it has, what's the word? Not stimulus. I guess a stimulus. Yeah. He talks about the things that they're really missing out on. Having a hot drink on a cold day, rubbing your hands together, trying on hats, like the little tactile things that they're missing out on. And just the connection you have with people. I want to be your friend. He says that a lot. I want to be your friend. Shake my hand. Because he knows. He was there. He knows is what they're missing. So his script is down pat for like exactly what they need to hear.
Might have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. You know what? Damiel did not seem like his first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the angels are very distant with one another. The only ones that we really see interact with each other are Damiel and Cassio. And that's basically it. And even then, like, the best they'll do is like a smile to each other and kind of sort of laughing at what the other's saying, at least smiling in reaction to what the other person is saying. So what Peter is doing is so far beyond that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's getting them to realize there's so much more in life than just giving people comfort and just being cordial with one another. There's so much to life that's beyond that he wants them to experience.
Yeah, friend almost seems like too strong of a word for what they have. It's just like a comfort and a familiarity. So, yeah, I can see why it's such a strong pull.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And speaking of all the angels on earth just nodding at each other and all that, what did you guys think of them visually? I noticed that they all seem to have a similar, almost uniform style of look to them, right? They all had like kind of trench coats and long ponytails that were tied in the back.
I didn't even notice that, really. And I think that's kind of the point. They want to be nondescript. So, yeah, that's my thought on that.
But enough that the audience can tell when they are angels.
Yes.
Right? You notice that when they're grouped up together and they're all just kind of similar, but at the same time, they're not really wearing anything.
They're functional.
Yeah, functional, just enough.
I didn't even remember what they were wearing. So, yeah, I think that says something.
They were so nondescript that they were all I could notice.
Yeah.
Seriously, when Damiel's walking through the library, the old man's walking through the library, or Cassiel's walking through the library, I kept having a moment like, there's an angel. There's an angel. There's an angel. Yeah, because like they look so different from everybody else, even though they're not meant to stand out. Like the way that they have non-reactions to everything, and then the way that they're standing and composing themselves makes them stand out even more in my eyes.
More so in places where they're all gathered together. Then it's weird, right? Like if you see one guy or girl in like a trench coat with the ponytail, fine. But if there's like 10 of them just sitting in the same table or something, then you're like, okay, what's going on here?
Funny contrast with the American remake with Nick Cage. In that movie, they do something different, which I don't like. They all meet at the same time in the same place every day to recount their experiences, the beautiful things. Same thing as in this movie. But they meet at the beach and at sunset. And I remember watching that movie going, what, nobody needs an angel at sunset or anywhere else in the city? It almost breaks the illusion for them to have a specific meeting place where all angels go at the same time. Because then it's like, hold on, if nobody needs you now, then do they ever need you? So I kind of like the nondescript way the two of them meet in this movie. It doesn't show a time of day, and the place seems kind of incidental, almost like they both just knew to appear here, not that they meet here every day. It kind of holds on to the illusion a little bit better.
Right.
That they have a purpose here.
Yeah, what if somebody's driving down the mountain and they get blinded by like the sunset light? You know, like
honestly,
too bad.
Nothing happens at sunset. Unbelievable.
If you're out between 6:30 p.m. and 7 p.m.,
no angels are looking after you. Yeah,
good luck.
They're on the beach.
Now, was it always stated that the job of the angels was to take care of you?
No, of course not.
Right. I feel like the job is just to document. They just happen to want to take care of them.
Maybe, but then why would they be able to hear their thoughts?
But that's to be able to document.
But what they document are actions, events. Like, oh, this weird thing happened. This weird thing happened. This beautiful thing happened. They're not like somebody had a really beautiful poem in their head that day. So it almost feels like you need to read their thoughts to be able to perform your job of comforting them.
You know, I wonder if they're documenting more than just events, but they're documenting the way humanity is progressing in terms of like emotional health, right? And maybe spiritual health, right? Maybe they're seeing like a dearth of that as time is moving on, especially after something, catastrophic like World War II or like all the incidental wars after that, right? Like
we only see one afternoon, right? Who knows what else they're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, they only discuss like some special moments that happened. That's just a few things versus everything happening.
But it's all like mostly emotional stuff related to like emotional things that happen to people, like the woman who decides not to like, carry her umbrella and just gets wet. There's like a reason behind that. They seem more interested in the reason she did that rather than the event of her not covering herself with an umbrella. You get what I mean?
I don't think there's enough to make a strong argument anyway, because
fair enough.
One of the examples, for example, is Cassio mentions he was in a prison cell and he saw a prisoner bash his head against the wall. Not beautiful, not emotionally eventful. Doesn't say anything about his religious aspect. It's just they're so all over the place. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I would read that as like that's an interpretation of like a man going insane and like trying to understand like his emotional state at that moment and like why he would do something like that.
But he doesn't record why. He just records the action.
Yeah, well, he just
told him the action. He doesn't mean he just told Damiel the action. He didn't really. That doesn't mean that's everything that he got out of it, right? Like they're just kind of summarizing what's happening.
Maybe
at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm just saying I'm undecided. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Talking about the looks of the film, I did like the brief shots we did get of the angel wings and how impressive that was, especially like one of the first shots that you see of Damiel just standing over the city. And his angel wings are out for a moment so that the film shows you like, hey, this guy's an angel. I really appreciated that because it's like they're kind of going along with like certain iconography of angels. So that gives you a representation that these are actual angels, right? Without the movie actually telling us they are. Just by that one visual cue, we know, okay, these are angels and this is what they're all about.
Do you think Damiel fell in love with Marion because she was flying around with fake angel wings?
I had a thought about that, but she was complaining about them. She was saying these are chicken wings, right? So maybe
Well, he sees her flying around through the air, and he's like, compadre. You know?
there were some pretty female angels in the library earlier, so I don't know. Maybe she's a little different. But yeah, I just appreciated the fact that the film opted to show, not tell, in many instances.
Oh yeah, all over the place, including the lore, I guess you could say, of the world. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of just interesting iconography and visuals and little lines that don't get expanded upon at all. For example, one thing that works functionally is that when they transform into a human, they have this armor that they apparate with that appears in the world. And I'm like, wait, are these soldiers? Were they soldiers at one point? Is their mission on Earth to fight some grand war as humans at some point? So they apparate with armor, and it works functionally because then at least they don't come into the world destitute. They have something of value.
Let me give you a few dollars just to tide you over.
I have money. I sold something.
The armor, right? What'd you get for it?
200 marks.
You got robbed. But that happens.
But like Roman centurion armor, what is that?
Yeah, again,
it doesn't need to be expanded upon. It's cool.
Yeah, again, it speaks to the iconography that most people would know about angels, right? And we do see a shot of him in the armor at one point when he's like kind of almost like mind melding with Marion.
His true ethereal self, it shows.
Right. He's just in his armor and his wings are outspread. You know, she's outspread, like going for an embrace, basically.
It was during a dream sequence, right? She was asleep.
Yeah, and he was actually touching her at that point. So I got the feeling he was kind of apparating into her subconscious. And maybe that's why she's so comfortable with him later on in the movie when he appears and they're just like instantly connected. They've already had that experience.
Oh, he does more than touch her. He's like hugging her.
Oh yeah.
He's like cuddling with her in bed.
It's okay. It's angels.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, buddy, slow down there, my friend. You haven't even said hello. There was something I wanted to ask you guys about, just as general cinematography. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but I liked that there were different styles of camera movement throughout the film. Or like I had mentioned earlier about Cassiel and his kind of fall, so to speak, and he's kind of disoriented and it almost looked like a steady somebody carrying a camera. They're just kind of shaking violently, right? But then you have other like wide shots of the city, and then you have like tracking shots of the characters walking through, and then you have like close-ups on the characters. It all belies like an emotion in everything that they do. Like, for example, when you see Cassiel and the old man kind of walking in the fields, you see the Berlin Wall behind them, and they're just kind of talking, and the old man's waxing poetic. And it's just they are a small part of the bigger world there.
Yeah, there's a lot of shots that serve more than just function. They have dual purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you're close up to the old man and Cassiel, they decide to go for more of a handheld kind of shot at the same time. So you can you feel like you're walking with them. So the Berlin Wall, actually, it was illegal to shoot the Berlin Wall, like to film it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they had to build a replica. So what you see is a replica of the Berlin Wall.
No kidding.
And they actually had to build it twice because the first one warped when it rained due to bad construction. A contractor decided to get stingy and he used the cheaper materials.
Bummer.
Yep. So you have to build it twice.
It is about 4 to 5 years out from when the wall would actually crumble. So it's interesting that, you know, this film is like trying to showcase like the heart of the people in West Berlin and like their perseverance through life, and maybe not knowing that in about 4 years' time they'd be freer than ever, right? And for me, I thought that was like a really poignant and very emotional point. As I thought about it, I was like, man, they're really trying to do their best in light of the situation they're in, and if they just wait like a few more years, it's all gonna get much better for them.
Definitely.
I really appreciate that.
I was joking before about the angel with the wings thing and, you know, what attracted them to each other. But there was one connection that I kind of noticed that made them right for each other. Through Marion's internal dialogue, we learned that she's always been alone. She says this a few times, actually, whether she's with somebody or not. But she was okay with being alone. And now for the first time in her life, she wants to truly connect with somebody. She was saying, with my parents or with a lover or whatever, I was alone and I was okay and I was happy. I feel like that kind of perfectly mirrors Damiel, who's in a similar predicament. He's not unhappy and he's around people all the time and he's observing them, but he's alone in the world, right?
Yeah.
So they're both at a very similar crossroads in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both they've both been alone for a long time, but have been okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And in parallel, now they've both reached a point in their life where they finally want to find that connection, and that's the perfect timing when they find each other.
I mean, so the angel wings and the flying could just be a representation of their similarities, not so much the obvious visual.
Right. True. That's true.
Yeah, it's interesting that, one is alone by choice and the other is alone just by circumstance.
Who's by circumstance?
Damiel. He's right. Effectively alone because, he can't really build a relationship with any of the angels, right? Like there's only a certain limit to their that they can build a relationship, seemingly.
But what I was mentioning is that her aloneness is not about physically being alone. It's about a lack of connection, because she can easily get a lover and she has friends and she has family and stuff. But it wasn't about that. It was about feeling alone, not being able to connect with anybody.
Right, but in part she also does mention
she also doesn't have a boyfriend at that time. Yeah,
sure that. But I'm also alluding more to the fact that she says that she's moved to this city, like she wasn't from there, right? She's made a choice
French,
to.
no?
I think maybe.
was
Marion's
French.
a French name, if I believe, if I remember correctly. So probably, but yeah, she chooses to move there, right? So in some sense, she has made a choice to venture out into the world. Pretty much a parallel of what Damiel wants to do. And I think in part here, maybe if he knows her life circumstance, he understands that and appreciates that about her, that she's taken the plunge that he hasn't been able to yet. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of an admiration on his part because of that.
Yeah, that's good, definitely. And speaking to Marion a little bit more, I don't know how you guys felt, but that final monologue really blew me away. Like, what a great finale. I mean, that's not quite the finale, but wonderful. It felt honestly like she was having a conversation with herself, almost like a continuation of her internal monologue throughout the entire movie. Damiel is obviously right there in front of her, and they're talking to each other, but it's such an internal monologue that's just coming out verbally.
Yeah, the way it's shot, it's mostly focused on her as like a single shot for a while, or like a face shot, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, when it gets to the close-up, that's insane. I actually wanted to mention that that's a really good example of less is more. A lot of movies would overuse the super close-up, but the fact that had never been used before in the movie, outside of like the eyeball in the very beginning, makes it so much more impactful.
Absolutely.
Well, they did use it once when Marion was dreaming. We were talking about it earlier, where like they're outstretched, like he's outstretched in his armor and the wings, and it does a close-up of both of their faces. Like,
I'm sure.
together.
All I mean is that it's done sparingly.
Right,
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's all related to like their relationship, basically.
It felt like in that final conversation, well, I guess we can better call it a monologue, right? Because
he doesn't say a word.
He doesn't say anything. Yeah. It just you really feel that was something she's been wanting to get out for a long time.
Yeah.
And she finally found the person that she wants to say it to. So that was just very beautiful in itself.
It implies an awareness that he was there the whole time. Maybe not, but I did kind of feel that. She was incredibly close and intimate with her dialogue with this guy, obviously she's never met, which implied a certain awareness that maybe not soulmates, but she felt a connection. Maybe that was always there.
There was definitely like a recognition of some kind.
That's a good word,
there.
A recognition, yeah. Even if it's not awareness.
Like there were no words at first. Like she goes and she sits next to him. Like she already kind of has some kind of recognition from across the room. And she walks up to him, she sits next to him, and they just both do this turn at the same time to each other as he's like holding this cup of wine or something.
Yeah, he gives her a drink. And actually, before he even sees her, like locks eyes with her.
He's already moving. He already feels it.
Yeah, so maybe it's like a similar connection that the angels have to each other. He feels with her.
Yeah.
I thought to myself jokingly, I was like, why would you drink from a stranger's cup? That's a party foul. You never do that.
Under normal circumstances, you don't do that.
You go to a bar, never leave your drink unattended.
But angels, that's that's okay if it's an angel.
Right.
Oh boy.
And then right after that, Damiel describes lovemaking through the imagery of connection and transformation, as we see Marion performing like the best acrobatics we've seen so far. So I thought that was just a really beautiful period or exclamation point at the end of the movie.
I agree. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's crazy just how like intimate she got there at the end, right? Because like what she was saying was like some heavy, deep stuff, and for her to share that with somebody must mean that like there's a lot of trust there.
Yeah, it's
Right.
funny how that works as an action finale to the end. It feels the same. It's this big cathartic moment. It might as well have been an explosion.
Yeah, with two characters that haven't actually interacted with each other.
Right.
Like they've interacted like spiritually, but not really physically. And it's just it's crazy that was the end that they went with. That trust in part I felt like was also there with Damiel and Cassiel, because the whole time that's happening you see Cassiel with the singer of the band, and he's just kind of observing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, he's there. He's never far away. Even at the end when she's doing like her best performance and Damiel's like helping her with it, you see Cassiel on the steps in black and white still, where
That's the
everything else
first
is
time
color.
they used that shot, that type of coloring. That
It
was really cool.
It was impressive, and he almost looked like he was in different clothing. Like he looked like he was dressed a little differently, a little more casual, and he's just watching them both. And I really appreciated that. Even though Damiel has left him in essence, he hasn't really, because you know he still kind of communicates with Cassiel like in his thoughts, even though it's more one way. But then he knows that Cassiel will watch over him because he's that good of a friend. So I think I like the fact that at the same time you see this building, you see the building of this relationship between Damiel and Marion. You still have a bit of a strengthening of the past relationship with Damiel and Cassiel, that you know he's still there for him. And I thought it was very
And hopefully that's the
beautiful.
beginning of Cassiel's shift as well.
Did you feel like Cassiel was lonely for the first time in that rock club? Or no?
It was one of the first times he felt anything.
That might have just been me, but I really felt like him watching them, he felt lonely.
I think what it hit was, in part, the singer had said, "I'm not gonna sing about a girl," and then immediately he goes, "I'm gonna sing about a girl," right?
Uh-huh.
And I understood that more as like singing about his friend. Like maybe he thought of like, "Oh, I'm missing my friend," right?
The singer's missing his friend?
No. Cassiel's hearing this guy's thoughts, and
Oh, he's getting
he tries
emotional
to-
because
yeah.
of the song?
yeah, a little bit, maybe.
Maybe.
And Cassiel's just kind of a little despondent, but again, at the same time, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he sees what's going on with Damiel and Marion, and he's happy for him, and he's watching over him. And I like to believe that maybe down the road, this can be an impetus for Cassiel to move past his angelhood,
Right.
or his angeldom.
And actually, did you guys know that all the black and white sequences were actually shot through a one-of-a-kind filter?
I did not.
Do you guys know?
Piece of like pantyhose like over the camera lens to make it look a little.
Sean, that's absolutely correct.
Is it?
I swear.
Yes.
It was actually made from a stocking that belonged to the cinematographer's grandmother.
Hold on.
Yes.
But that's not a black and white filter. That wouldn't make it black and white.
They used the filter on top of it.
Okay.
Then
But
give
it was shot on
give it a
black and white film.
specific look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was inspired because Alejandro and I, separately from the podcast, we watched an interview with the cinematographer from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which, listener, go listen. Great episode. And they talk about a normal technique to give some kind of filter to the shot is put a piece of netting, usually like pantyhose or something, over the camera lens.
That's right.
So I knew that would come
Good
in
guess.
handy.
Good
yeah.
guess.
Woo.
That was great.
I mean, no, man, speaking of the color, there's a really cool lineage there with using color to show humanity or emotion. You know, you got Schindler's List, The Giver in the novel form, A Single Man, which Sean and I watched.
Which one's the one with Tobey Maguire? Is that it?
Spider-Man?
No.
Great Gatsby.
No, there's a movie actually with Tobey Maguire.
Oh,
where-
Pleasantville.
That's it.
That's another one.
Pleasantville.
Perfect. That's another example.
I thought that was a wonderful film and great use of that concept as well.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time, so it feels like more than filmic language to me. There's something inherent that we understand when you make that contrast between color and black and white. That color represents love, humanity, inherent.
I think we were kind of raised to learn that, right? I think culturally that's just always
You think so? I
been
feel like it's
part
an
of it.
inherent thing. Like culturally, what?
Like,
just mean
I don't know,
through media?
Yeah, through media growing up. You know, I don't know where it started from though. I can't really and why do colors just emote certain emotions. Why is
Well, but
red
that's what I mean.
passion?
They do though. So when you put that into media, there's an automatic understanding of what that
Right.
means.
Yeah, I wonder where that comes from, though. The history of that. That kind of raises that question.
Well, it's
I
pretty
mean-
special with humans. Not many animals have the same color range that we do. It is pretty unique to us.
Yeah, I thought of to like Shakespeare, the way he makes descriptions of like Juliet's love is like, it's like a burning passion kind of deal, right? It's like relates to like fire or roses or things like that. So
Yeah, I
it might
think it's
have
just something we
originated
understand.
Yeah, white with as being
Purity.
emotional purity, right? Green as being envious.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say something about the main angel. I really liked his look for the film. I felt like he had like just this very distinct look that really added to the mystique of his character. I had never seen this actor before, but I just thought it was a
really
very
cool.
a very good pick. Like he's not like particularly like, I guess, good looking. He's got like this ruggedness to him.
Not particularly leading manish.
Yeah, very unique.
Not a lot of sexual energy.
He's very emotive though.
Yeah, very emotive, and I see him more being a villain in films. Actually, like
I would see
can
that,
see him as a really like. I think he would have been a great Bond villain, just from his look alone. But I mean, he played this curious.
He's got a very
angel
somber
very well.
face.
Yeah.
But then when he does emotes, like he does it really strongly, actually.
Oh yeah. The shift when he becomes human, he's all giddy and happy. Like you really see that contrast.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really wonderful. I thought he was just very magnetic on screen to see.
And actually seeing him when he's at the bar for the first time in like something fitted and nice looking, I'm like, okay, he's actually an attractive guy. You can't tell before that, honestly. He's wearing a big puffy coat, and then before that, obviously the trench coat.
I
Right.
don't know, that rat's tail, pretty hot.
Shut your mouth.
And then finally for me, the last note I have is just talking about the soundtrack itself.
I was going to talk about that too.
I thought it was incredibly beautiful, somber and melancholic, and definitely really highlighted the feeling of loneliness. It really highlighted that and helped push that emotion along. So yeah, I thought it was beautifully crafted.
It reminded me of In Bruges. Go watch it now. And the musical choice in that, where it's kind of similar throughout, but it was again very somber and kind of lent to like the emotion of the film. And a lot of the music in here, jokingly, but it kind of reminded me a bit of like some old JRPG games. I thought it was like just very like haunting almost.
Yeah. This is getting a 4K release soon in about a month or so. I'm definitely going to pick that up.
The Criterion collection, right?
Yeah. I want to see those special features.
For sure.
You talking about special features? Does it talk about why they say to be continued at the end?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but there is a sequel
Oh, really? It was made
by the same director. So this isn't a BS studio sequel. It's a real
Oh.
sequel. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think 96.
Oh, wow. I wonder what that's exactly about. Does it involve Cassio?
No, different angels.
Okay.
But I don't know. I assume a similar story. I definitely want to see it too. But that's a good point. When I saw it to be continued at the end, I didn't get the impression that it was because it was setting up a sequel. I got the impression it was like, this story is going to continue till the end of time. This is a story of humanity.
Yeah, I got so I was confused. So my initial thought was, oh, there's going to be a sequel. But then I thought, what is it going to be? Is it going to show like what true humanity is like, where now we have to see the trials and tribulations of their relationship? Maybe they get a divorce in like 10 years or something.
Bummer.
And like he gets an addiction, he gets like a drug addiction or something. And
His kids have half angel powers. What's happening, father?
yeah,
Why?
and the final boss of that movie is like him against one of his kids, something like that. Cassio's got to go save him and stuff like that.
Battling like mace versus mace, flying in the air.
He recovers his armor and he starts fighting his children.
Father, the sleeper has awakened!
But then I thought,
Maybe not.
no, this is probably about humanity continuing on, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, but apparently, he had a sequel in mind.
Oh, there you go.
I'm definitely curious to see it.
Yeah, me too. I also want to see City of Angels, like the Nick Cage version. I'm actually very curious about
It's a
it.
fun comparison.
in a place called the City of Angels. One of us
Dr. Rice, 300.
is about to meet one of them.
Have you ever been seen, Cassio? Have you ever been seen like you were a man? She looked right at me.
She didn't see you, Seth.
All right, let's do some scores.
All right.
You want to start, Alejandro?
Sure. I'm going 9 out of 10. A gorgeous look at humanity through the eyes of an outsider. Captivating, surreal, and most importantly, personal. What about you, Dano?
I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a very beautiful movie. But actually, I want to quote something that the reviewer Roger Ebert said.
Nice.
It was actually specifically talking about the comparison of City of Angels with Wings of Desire. I thought in this comparison between the two movies, it kind of helps summarize what makes this one special. So I just wanted to...
What'd he say? I'm curious.
So he says, City of Angels is a skillful romantic comedy and I enjoyed it, but it all stayed there on the screen, content to be what it was. Wings of Desire doesn't release its tension in a smooth plot payoff. It creates a mood of sadness and isolation, of yearning, of the transience of earthly things. If the human being is the only animal that knows it lives in time, the movie is about that knowledge. So I just thought that was really beautifully said.
He gives a better impression of City of Angels than I would, so yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was wonderful, and that's kind of why I give it such a high score. I will say that I don't think the film is for everyone. You know, I think you need a lot of patience to watch this film, and you need to be ready for a film that is not plot heavy. You know, that it's just about the emotions. You know, I know a lot of people that I wouldn't recommend this to, for example, who are maybe not so, you know, as patient as I am, or maybe just doesn't like this type of psychological emotional film.
It's also just not an American Hollywood movie. I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's a patience thing. It's a pacing thing that's very just not American.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I just feel like people watching this need to be kind of more open-minded to it.
Yeah, know what you're getting into, definitely.
Exactly. But if you can get past that and really just focus on the emotion of the movie, like, you're gonna have a wonderful time. It's gonna
enjoy the poetry.
It's a beautiful experience.
to listen to.
Yeah. Sean?
Well, I also give it an 8.5 out of 10, actually. It's a very lovely film. I could definitely feel the time passing while watching this film because it really forces you to stop and contemplate life and your place in it. You know, for what purpose do we act, and how we must continue to act, never really giving up. It's a very deep film, very poetic film. I'm not sure I really fully comprehended all the messaging of the film, but with that said, I came away with a greater appreciation of life and really for all that I am. So for that, 8.5 out of 10. Cough.
All right. Join us next week for Banshees of Inisherin.
I just have this tremendous sense of time slipping away in me, Pádraig. And I think I need to spend the time I've left thinking and composing.
You can't just all of a sudden stop being friends with a fella.
Why can't I?
Why can't you? Because it isn't nice.
Set on a remote island off the coast of Ireland, Padraig Sullivan is suddenly left reeling and unprepared by the sudden BFF breakup from lifelong friend Colm Daltrey. Decides to make it his mission to repair his damaged relationship by any means necessary. Will there be retribution, or is Padraig just too dull for Colm's liking? Find out next week. You can stream it on HBO Max, Hulu, Amazon Prime, or you can rent it on YouTube or Apple TV. Sean, where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Ardent Cinema. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, give us a rating and a review. It goes a long way towards building the podcast. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, hit like, click subscribe, and hit the little notify bell so you're made aware when new episodes drop every week. And with that, guys, thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate it. And with that, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Long live the new flesh.